I remember
forgot.
what happened
What
was
happened?
I had to go to her house at like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I just packed all my
pack
shit
all her
in
stuff
the
into the car.
packed all my shit into your
and
small ass car that you had at the time.
Yeah, bring it all over here. And
it's like I got out of work, came home, and I was like, I'm leaving. Fine.
Welcome to the show, guys.
Hi. Thank you for having us.
We got Christa and Steve. You go Steve or Steven? What do you prefer?
Steve is good.
Steve is good. Okay. Now, Christa and I know each other well. We've done a bunch of collabs together, and just for today, as everybody knows, Steve, we haven't really talked much. She's been on my show. Now, Christa, you got a little over 3 years sober, right?
Yeah, we're kind of like I'm a month behind him.
Okay, so let's do sober dates. Christa, what's your sober date?
November 6th, 2018.
November 6th, 2018. September 6th, 2018.
No, December.
December 6th, 2018. Okay, and Steve, what's yours?
November 22nd, 2018.
Okay, so yeah, you got a couple weeks. Now, did you guys meet like in rehab, or did you guys meet in the rooms? You don't say which kind of fellowship, but did you guys meet in the rooms or in rehab?
It was at the facility. It was at Salvation Army.
Okay, so it was in the treatment. You had a couple weeks, clean in there at the time.
Yeah.
Do you remember when she came? Because I remember like when I showed up to rehab. Like, now, do you remember like when this girl showed up to rehab? Just like, because by then you would have had a little more clarity than she would have had at 2 weeks.
Yes, I clearly remember the day that she showed up.
Can you tell me why you remember?
Because I thought like she was so beautiful, and like I was like my world stopped around me, and I was just like enthralled by this person, and I was just like I need to get to know this person somehow, some way. And
was that your first rehab stint?
No.
Okay, no. But it was hers. I remember that was hers.
I don't know. I wouldn't call it my first because I've been in other treatments. It was
okay.
Yeah, but detox is different than treatment, I feel.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely different. There's definitely, well, it depends also on the area. Like different states have different, they call things differently, whether it's inpatient, detox, treatment, rehab. I feel like sober living, halfway houses, 3/4 way. I feel like there's so many different phrases for things. So, but when you saw her, you're just like, I want to get to know this person.
Yeah.
But you also, did you know about how like rehab love is like taboo at the same time because you had been experienced with rehabs by then?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I didn't want to like jump on anything, and I didn't even talk to her for like a couple of months. And like
smart.
I was like I was really just trying to I was really focusing on myself and doing me like completely, because that time around, I'm still sober today. I was really serious about it this time. I finally gotten myself to that place on my own, and I didn't want to risk it. Like I didn't want to lose what I had, and after everything I've heard about, relationships and how things, people just run off and they're off and running.
High together. Yeah. I mean, that's what I was going to ask you, either of you next, if either of you had experiences with being in relationships in other rehabs or facilities or rooms, in the past where, we all have those relationships in addiction where they're toxic and we're getting high with that person. I feel like we all had at least one of them, or drunk or high, whatever our DOC was. But did you have any relationships before her where you were sober with that person that they didn't end well and it was kind of a fear, either of you?
I had never been in a...
But you just heard about it. You've heard about the rehab romances that don't work, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I'd never had a sober romantic relationship at all. Like
until this one.
Yeah.
I mean, before I started dating you, I met this guy, Chris, in detox, and then he ended up going to Salvation Army. So like I went after him, and then we sort of had this like weird thing going on, but he ended up being kind of creepy and like really emotional. Chris.
Really early in sobriety, emotional. Krista doesn't add up.
Like it was another level, like and that was just bad news. But at the time, I didn't know. Like we were in detox. We hooked up in the hallway, and then it was just like
it was meant to be in the hallway making out.
Yeah.
Do you think, Steve, you needed that time though, that couple months to like basically ignore her? Like if you would have jumped into it, it could have been bad for both of you. Were you most afraid of that?
Okay, well, first of all, Salvation Army has a strict rule where like girls and guys can't talk to each other at all. Like if you look at each other, like that's still bad too.
Oh, okay.
So it was very like intense.
It was really taboo. Like you could get kicked out easily.
I ended up, okay, well, first some kid wrote me a note, and that was just like so dumb. I got in trouble for that. They're like how
there
dare
was
you?
some guy wrote her a love note, and it said,
oh my God.
I quote, "You're like a goldfish in a shark tank."
What?
I wish I kept the note.
Yeah, like he like tried to pass her a pack of cigarettes and like a love note.
Oh my God.
And like.
Well, that's rehab romance right there, like a pack of smokes and a note written on the back and stuffed inside the cellophane, right?
Yeah.
One of the counselors ended up finding it.
Yeah, he brought me into the chapel and was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, like, I found this note." And then, like, he was saying, "You gotta beware, like, you're like, I don't know what the word is, but like,
You're like a goldfish in a shark tank."
Yeah, a goldfish in a tank full of sharks. Yeah, but yeah.
I'm trying to like catch up with how that makes any kind of sense in a way of like, like hitting on somebody. Like, what genius was he? Like, he was he writing that going, man, this is genius. This is how can she say no to this? Like,
but I ended up getting in trouble for the whole Chris thing. That was this guy's name. And I should have known that it was just a bad idea to get with this guy. He was like older than me. He was very vulnerable. He was a liar, and then he started seeing me as his property. And I was like, absolutely not, dude. Like, oh my God. And then the way he would just talk about me around other guys, I guess. And he just became very possessive to the point where I was like, okay, no. And then in classes, he would just sit there and just like cry. And we'd all be like, dude, like, I mean.
No. Okay. So he saw you day one and waited months. Now, did you see him as in Steve? Did you see Steve day one? Or when is it that you noticed Steve and was like,
So I used to work in the kitchen and with a few of the guys, and then I would see him come through like the food line to get the food, and I'm like, oh, he's cute, but like obviously we're not allowed to talk or whatever. I didn't really think anything of it, and then I got moved out of the kitchen detail, and then I was put upstairs to where they sort all the clothes and stuff for the Salvation Army stores. And then sometimes we would work downstairs where you like put the clothes back on the racks in the store, and he worked downstairs. He did like the
I expedited for the store, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fancy word for put stuff out on the floor.
Yeah, you moved it. Yeah, you expedited.
But he would walk through like all the time. And
it's like, I'm a chauffeur. You're a chauffeur? Yeah, I drive that. I'm a bus driver, but I say chauffeur because it sounds it's a stretch bus limo.
Yeah. But I would see him in the hallways. Yeah, I would see him in the hallways, and he would be like singing songs or whistling, and I would just like look at him, and in my mind I was just like, oh, he's hot, like he's probably has a girlfriend, like, just like not thinking anything really of it. But I would look at him, and then he would look away, and then right?
Yeah, no.
Like you knew.
I knew that she liked me because anytime I looked over at her, she would look away.
Yeah, that's always every time you would, and then you would look at her because you had a crush on her, but you would look at her and she would like quickly no, don't look at me. You can't look me in the eye yet. You can't look.
You can't even look at me. Don't look at me.
Now, so you
Wanna
said
get-
it was months. Were you Steve? Were you out of Salvation Army by the time you finally like pursued her more? How did you feel like? Were you calculated about how you were like? I don't want to like be overwhelming. I don't want to push her like.
We would walk to meetings. Like, we didn't have anyone to chauffeur us around, so we would walk to all our meetings and stuff. And I remember he would be the guy like in front of all the other guys, just like not like a part of the group that we all walked with. He would just be in his own mind, like with his headphones on, like staying out of trouble kind of. And I would be talking to like the other guys and like whoever was walking to the meeting, you know, on the way back and forth. So he kind of kept to himself. He was really working his program.
Yeah. And I was still, we were still there. It's like 6-month program when you're at Salvation Army. So it's a long time. And by the time I was 4 months clean, that's when I kind of introduced myself. Actually, a friend of hers introduced us, and, you know, we started talking. And
yeah, my roommate at the time, because I told her I had a crush on Steven, and she was like, she came back to the room and was like, well, so, because she was talking to Mark at the time, and then anyway, she set it up. We went out to eat like after a meeting one night, and we kind of hit it off, and from there,
Now, when did you guys move in together, like, and get even more serious? Because now you both got out of this 6-month program within a couple weeks of each other. Now, were you in the same kind of area already? Like, you know, because like when I got sober, I went all the way to Los Angeles, you know what I mean, from Pennsylvania. So like when I was done my program, I came all the way back to Pennsylvania, and I was not near anybody that I was in sober living with.
so what happened was I got a job, and my brother also, he allowed me back into his house, so I moved in with my brother, and she stayed in the program, and afterwards she went to a sober house, which is an all-female, you know,
sober living.
Yeah, it's kind of like
a halfway house, sober living, where you come and go, you have a curfew.
Yeah. So she stayed there for
another 6 months.
Another 6 months. So she had like a year under her belt before she moved in with me.
Yeah, that place was dumb.
That was the it was.
The lady that ran that place was like, oh my god.
So how was it, like, you know, getting to know each other now in a situation to where you're on your own, Steve? You have about the same amount of sobriety, but you're on your own where you can like live your life. You're living with your brother, and then you, Christa, you have all these rules of like sober living rules of like you have to do this many meetings a week. You have to go to IOP probably. You have to have a curfew, I'm sure, and you know all this chores, and you know you're still kind of under a watch as opposed to Steve just. I'm sure you're under a watch too, but I have a brother that's, you know, not in the program. He's a normie, but like he was watching me. So like, I get that, but it's different to be like, have family, like keeping an eye on you and like the rules of a sober living. Like, how was that for your relationship for 6 months?
It was interesting. I kind of felt nervous when you came over, but they allowed like visitation. I remember one time we were like in the basement cuddling on the couch, and what's her name? The like lady of the house before she relapsed came down and was like, no snuggling or no cuddling or whatever. We're like, oh shit.
The old lady. I forget her name.
I don't know, Deborah?
Deb, yeah.
Deb.
Sounds like an older lady's name, Deb.
Well, Deb rules.
But it was more laid back than Salvation Army.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean,
I mean, Salvation Army is night and day to anything from what I've heard from people. That's like a strict.
We did end up getting in trouble at Salvation Army again. My God, they were like, you didn't learn the first time. I was like,
now how was it going to be like? You went from sober living to now living with Steve?
Yeah. Well, after the 6 months, I was kind of like, all right, this place sucks. Like, I've had enough. The lady that ran the place, not the head lady, but the other lady, was just like a bitch, and I don't know what happened, but she gave me like an ultimatum for something.
I remember
forget.
what happened
What
was
happened?
I had to go to her house at like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I just packed all my shit.
Pack all her stuff into the car.
Packed all my shit into your small ass car that you had at the time.
Yeah, bring it all over here. And
it's like I got out of work, came home, and I was like, I'm leaving. Fine, I'm leaving. I forget what happened. I didn't get in trouble for anything, but it was just like ridiculous. I think I was
just almost like you had enough. Like,
yeah.
No, I'm done. I'm done. Yeah. That makes sense though. Like, because
I was thinking of moving in with them.
Yeah, at that point you guys have been together almost, almost a year, and you almost a year of sobriety on top of that. Like, even if you were together 8 months, I think that would probably be like the math from like 4 months in meeting and all that. But still, that's a while, especially if 6 of those months are out. Now, are you doing things that you guys do a lot of, like yoga together, right? Or what do you guys do for your meditation? You guys do a lot of different things for your recovery together, I see.
Yeah. We try to stay as active as possible with it, pretty much watching church on TV. That's like one of the biggest things that I can think of. But I do.
Well, I mean, at first we got to know each other. We walked around a lot. I mean, honesty was like really important in a relationship because like we're sober, we can be completely honest like we never were before with anybody in our lives. Like that was the first time I think I was completely honest with everything on the surface, right? Like getting to know each other, and then
being vulnerable for the first time, really, and like just opening up completely.
Right, and then that made it so much easier for us to just like have that bond, that special bond, and then we went on dates, and then from there,
So when did you propose, Steve?
We were together for about like a year and a half. It was July.
It was the 3rd of July in North Carolina.
Anybody who's not from Massachusetts or New England that doesn't know how big of a deal the 3rd of July is actually in Massachusetts. Like in New England, I feel like the 3rd of July is the day that you celebrate the 4th. Like I never really had like a huge celebration on the 4th, but the 3rd, hell yeah. Like you went down to the beach in Plymouth, we walked around and everyone lit off fireworks, or I would go up to Marshfield. So it's so funny you said 3rd of July because anybody outside New England's like, July 3rd, you mean, Steve? Like, no, the 3rd of July is how they say it in New England.
I didn't realize that.
It is a celebration where everyone, it's so funny that, like, I always remember, like, going to the beaches and just, like, walking around, like, Plymouth and just walking up and on the beach while everyone was lighting off fireworks. I think the one year, we went to Marshfield instead. And you just...
crazy, like, Weymouth, all
windy. And that's the point, is no one knows about that unless like you've experienced it. So it's a big deal when you say that's a big night, the 3rd of July. So there's fireworks going off and shit. Like, was that like kind of planned out for that?
Yeah, I mean,
we were on vacation at my brother's house in North Carolina.
Okay, but still, you had that New England mindset of this is the 3rd, this is the day.
Yeah, and it was like there was crappy weather for the next day, so they were doing all the fireworks that night. And I mean, I had bought the ring like probably like a few weeks before, and I was like kind of like holding on to it, and I wanted it to be like something special and memorable. So when we were down, I figured we ended up on vacation or whatever, and I was like, I think this is the time. I should do it.
We went kayaking off into the sunset because my brother's house is literally on the ocean.
Oh, shit. Okay, so is it like down Outer Banks or down Wilmington?
It was it's like the Outer Banks. It was like the Inner Banks, if you could call it that.
Okay.
Like there's the Outer Banks is like a boat ride across the river or whatever. We were in that big river.
Okay, I lived in North Carolina for a little bit too. I've lived all over this freaking country, so that's why I've been over there a bunch. I lived in Durham for a year, right by Duke University. That's like in the middle of the state. I lived there for a year, so I had a couple of vacations down by Outer Banks. So I know what you're talking about.
What's it called? Bath.
Bath. Okay, yeah.
like tub, like a bath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a pirate place.
For settlement or whatever.
Well, yeah, it's because a lot of those towns are named after English towns.
Mm-hmm.
So Bath is is a big city out in England, and so that's what it's named after in North Carolina is the settlers. They would name them after the cities they came from in England. So that's why you see like even like York, like New York.
Yeah.
It's based off York, the city of York out in England. Then it was New York City. Yeah.
And just
so,
like the Massachusetts. You know,
Mass has a ton of them.
Needham and.
And well, no one even knows how to say half the names in Massachusetts anyway. Anybody outside of New England, if you showed them, obviously Worcester, they're gonna be like, what? Worcester?
Worcestershire.
Yeah. they have no idea. Like I remember my one friend was going up there to blow glass, and she's like, oh yeah, like I think I'm going to this city. You ever heard of Worcester? Is that anywhere near you? I'm like, Worcester. I'm like, you mean Worcester?
Yeah.
Like, and I say Worcester. You guys say Worcester. You know, so I still say my R's. I know how to say it the way you guys say it too. But yeah, especially Massachusetts. There's a ton of those cities that are named after the cities from England. So that was about a year and a half ago, right? That you guys got engaged. So how far along are you? Spoiler alert to anybody listening. Christa's pregnant. They are expecting a baby in April, I believe.
Yeah.
April 3rd.
April 3rd. That's exciting.
It's the due date.
And it is both of your first kids.
But he proposed to me, and the ring didn't hit my finger. We didn't tell him that story.
No, wait. You have a kid, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a 5-year-old son.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
From when you were still active.
Yeah.
And how often do you spend time with him?
I don't get to. His mother's very bitter. And,
okay. That happens.
You know, it's a really messed up situation it's just a lot.
Bitter is being nice.
Yeah, saying she's being
bitter.
You know,
that's the way you have to even say it in recovery, though, right, man? Because like it's out of your control. Because I don't have any kids from when I was in addiction. I have a stepson that that came in my life 2 years ago while I was sober. You know what I mean? So for me, I don't have that, but I can also see where we can't change any of the shit that's happened, and all we can do is just live amends, right? And just try to be a better person and hope that one day that bitterness, to be nice, lifts, and maybe she sees, oh, he's great with his daughter, because again, spoiler, it's a girl, right?
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So that's exciting. And so maybe she'll see, oh, well, I want him to have his sister, and be able to have his sister in his life. And it's just one of those things you can just hope to keep on doing their next right thing. And,
That's,
Yeah. I tell him he's doing the right thing all the time.
I tried to do all the, everything that I could from the court perspective. And it's just, there's one thing left, and that's now I have to go to Connecticut. She moved out of state, and it'll be a lot of money for me to start a case over there. So it's
it'll and when the kid gets old enough too, it's that same thing of that kid saying, well, why not? I want it. You know what I mean? So it's better to be patient and not pushy. Because all you're going to do is just push it further and to make the situation worse, in my opinion.
This episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet. I can do this in a basement. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. So if you can help out, we do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to, and all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on, and goes towards keeping the internet on. So please, if you can give $5, $10, $20, it doesn't matter. Anything you can is so appreciated. And if you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you can reach out to me, and we can talk about how you can be a sponsor. But I'll let you get back to the episode.
You said something about the ring not fitting.
Yeah, so you wanted to propose to me kayaking. Tell the story.
Yeah, no. So I was like,
cute.
all right, I'm gonna do it. It's gonna be, the sun's gonna be setting, and that's when I'm gonna ask the question. It's gonna be all perfect timing and everything, right? And so we're out there and, you know, putting along, and I'm like, hey, we should go back now. It's like the sun's starting to go down. I'm like trying to like paddle back to shore or whatever. She's like, why? Who cares? Blah blah blah. So she's still out there.
Yeah.
And I go back to shore. She's like, oh, she's kind of like let down. And she's like, why'd you stop? Like, you know, she wanted to keep going. And I was like, oh yeah, I just asked her right then and there. And she said yes. She was kind of in shock at first.
Kind of in shock.
I was like, so is that a yes? Or...
like,
but yeah, she was.
And then he went to put the ring on my finger, and then like it didn't fit, so he had to force it like on my finger, like, and then I was wearing it, and then it was kind of cutting off my circulation. So like the next day.
Steve, did you do that guy thing of like try to guess the size and not actually try to like hint around for the? You know, I feel like a lot of guys are almost afraid to like even hint towards it because then they're going to give it away. So they just like, I'll look at her old rings and I'll look at the number on the old ring and that's what I'll match it up with.
No, what I did was I took one of her other rings, but I put it on my pinky, and it only fit like halfway down my pinky. So I was like, all right, that's about the size it needs to be.
I gotta hold her hand and see which fingers of mine match up, and she won't even notice, and I'll get this right.
I was trying my hardest for her to not know, and
I didn't know.
It did work. So anyway, we try everything possible to get the ring off of her finger at this point.
I'm like, I love it.
Oh my god, because now it's stuck on.
It's swollen.
Like, yeah.
It's turning blue.
So we try oil. We try the ice pack. We tried cooling it off, and we tried everything. Her brother is like a firefighter, so he's like, oh, you gotta do this, and then so we're like, oh man.
The rope thing.
No, it's like it's 4th of July down in North Carolina, and we're like, we need to go to like a jewelry store or something, hoping that something's open.
So they could cut it off. I mean.
And they did it for free.
Because they have the jewelry slicer thing.
Yeah, because it's dangerous. I mean, I remember Jimmy Fallon almost lost his finger. Like it's like a really popular thing to get your ring finger cut off from the circulation and it getting stuck the wrong way. People falling and having it jam into your finger and literally having to amputate the finger, or they have to break it so bad to that's God. Why I would just I'll take the tattoo. You know what I mean? I'll take the tattoo wedding ring where it's not going anywhere. I'm not going to lose it.
That's an Irish wedding ring, right?
Is that what?
I thought that's what it was called.
Is it? Well, they have it's kind of I did it kind of like a Celtic ring, to be honest, because the Celtic ring, the whole point is that you turn it around when you get married so that the heart faces within instead of, I think the whole point is the heart faces out when you're open and available, and then you turn it in when you're not. And so when I did do it, I did make sure the M faces me, and it looks like a W to everybody else. But the point is that I see the M when I'm looking at it because her name's Mikey. So, and she has a J on her finger for, JD. So that's how we actually is taboo, but we got our ring fingers tattooed 2 months before we said I do. Just because we knew it was a matter of waiting for her divorce to go through from her first marriage. And as soon as her paperwork was going to go through, we were going to do it. And my friend was in town and she was giving us tattoos in our living room for fun. And we were like, oh, just do our ring fingers while you're here. Might as well. We're going to get married. So, we definitely could have jinxed it by getting it early. But the thing is, as soon as the divorce came in, we picked up the divorce papers from our lawyer, which are across the street from the courthouse. So on the same quarter that we paid for parking to get to the lawyer, we walked across the street to the courthouse and got our marriage license literally right after. They're like, oh, do you have proof of the divorce papers? And that shit wasn't even dry yet as we're handing it over across the thing. you know, and that we got married in our living room during quarantine, like the day after Thanksgiving. Like Domino's came in, it was a $30, you know, thing for our wedding. It was beautiful. I don't need the whole spectacle and anything. I wanted to have a nice low key, you know, thing. When are you guys have a date? Do you guys have a date? I'm sure like things got pushed around when, you know, news of the baby and quarantine and
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, next year I kind of want to go to the courthouse and just do it for us and then have like a party after.
honestly, for tax reasons, do it when you have the kid, especially because just for taxes alone, like, you know, I love my wife and we're going to be together no matter what. But the main reason that we got it just taken care of right away is because the tax benefits are so much better, especially because we do have, you know, our kid and he is like, we do co-parent, but we claim him. So as a married couple claiming a kid, it's much more beneficial. So, yeah, that's that for us. Like, if we eventually have a party, we have a party, but we didn't care about that. She had already been married, already wore the dress, you know, and already had that. And for me, I'm, you know, a former comedian who doesn't like attention, you know, but yet I do this show, but I don't care. I don't need the applause. I don't need for me. So as soon as she was like, oh, I don't need everybody walking down the aisle this time, I already did that whole thing. It's like, okay, cool, living room it is. And my friend got ordained by the Church of Dudism, you know, from like the Big Lebowski, like, and and married us in the living room.
Oh my God. I can't tell you how many times I've watched that movie.
It's phenomenal. That's why.
It was the only DVD that we had like in the apartment. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was living with a bunch of degenerates at the time.
Yeah, obviously.
This was for lack of better words, it was a fucking shooting gallery, dude. Like it was bad. Like it, you know,
a trap house with a DVD player.
Yeah. Like, it's like one of the only things I was there. You know what I mean?
You guys in your trap houses.
Yeah, and like so, we just I just watched the movie over and over and over again. Like, but I'd be like, that's me. That's how I live.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there is a church out there. It literally, I think it's out in Oregon somewhere. So they started it. It's a Church of Dudism, and you can get ordained under it and marry people. And like, I asked the county clerk or whatever, I'm like, hey, is this like an acceptable like religion to get married under for this county? Like, is this going to be accepted? She's like, hey, we don't judge it. If you accept it as the religion you want marrying you, then you accept it. I'm like, done. Like done.
Just thought of something, right? Like instead of like the cup of wine, it's like it's a White Russian, and you like.
Well, we were sober then, so we weren't drinking. That was definitely a sober, you know, party for us. But it was hanging out and watching Bob's Burgers in our living room, you know, eating some Domino's. It was a nice little reception, nothing too crazy. Nobody got drunk. It was nice. But you know, how do you guys, so like, you know, relationships and addiction are a lot different than relationships and sobriety. So like getting through shit today is different than if you were in a relationship trying to get through shit, because like before, like I remember it was, we're just both going to get high and then not talk about that problem ever again. So like, how do you find yourself getting through like real life shit together without getting high or drunk?
I mean, how do we do it? I say my higher power.
A lot of forgiveness.
Because I mean, we've been through so much together. Like things that you've dealt with, things that I've dealt with, and we haven't picked up a drink or a drug, and that's amazing. You know?
What do you think? Yeah, what do you think that mostly is? You think it's higher power? Do you think it's communicating? What do you think it's
power, but also communication? I mean, we said our higher power, God first for us, and then ourselves, and then each other. We put that in place from the beginning, and it seems
that was actually something that we agreed upon, like when we first started talking. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of like, you know, we're both still at Sally's or whatever, but like we were talking and it was getting kind of serious, and things were getting serious, but Yeah, so like we sat down. I was like, listen, you know, I wanna have you in my life, but you know, for this thing to work between both of us and our sobriety, it's gonna have to go God, ourselves, and then each other. You know, like we're not the
We're
priority.
spiritual
We're not
people.
that, like, us is not the priority.
You
Our-
can't make each other your higher power. You can't make her your higher power. She can't make you her higher power, because the reality is you're both not always going to be together. Or, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, like, even when you're older, if somebody passes away before the other, you know, very rare that you die at the same time together. So, like, you know, it's really hard to rely on somebody to be your higher power. So that's a great way to basically go into a relationship sober with that mindset of no.
Or, you
What?
know, I mean, I never had that before in any other relationship. You know, my spirituality came back when I got sober, and I mean, yeah,
Yeah, I think that's a good rule to stick by, you know,
like
and
we
kind
have
of check yourselves.
ourselves as people first, you know, in recovery and in life in general. Because then, if we don't love ourselves, how do we love other people?
Hmm.
Yeah. It's
and
tricky.
also, when I say about self-care, I also put my recovery as that's my self-care. You know, my recovery regimen. When at the time in the early recovery, I was like meetings. You know,
I
was
remember.
I was on top of my shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I did not skip a beat. And, you know, time goes by, you kind of relax a little bit. And, I mean, we do this stuff, like, you know what I mean?
Being active in recovery doesn't necessarily mean what it used to mean 5 years ago, in my opinion. I think 5 years ago, you know, pre-COVID days, being active in recovery was you know, meetings makers make it, and you go to meetings and that's it. But I think COVID opened up a lot of avenues for a lot of people where, you know, you can do things virtually now. You can do meetings virtually. You can do podcasts now. I mean, podcasts were so frowned upon for recovery a couple of years ago because of the traditions, and you're breaking traditions and all. I'm sure you guys are well aware of that.
like when before COVID started, and I was, you know, life catches up with you, and you know, I was kind of relaxed on my meetings. I was like, you know what, I got like 18 months, whatever. I'm just gonna chill out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I have been grinding for the past year and a half.
Yeah.
You know, running back and forth from Providence to Cranston, and just it was just like, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna slow down. And I tried listening like on Spotify, and like listen, like within the past couple of years, it is like blown up. Like a few years ago,
Yeah, it wasn't a few years ago.
yeah, like a year and a half ago, there was like nothing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's
Right?
like it's flooded. Like there was like random like sound clips and stuff. Like that was like kind of like the big thing. Like
Well, it's the Joe Rogan effect. That's the Spotify, I think, really amped up their podcast last year when they got Rogan on board to leave YouTube and Apple and go to Spotify exclusively. And then they were like, well, if we get millions of listeners a day for Rogan, that means we got to keep them here with other content. And I think that's when they like joined up with Anchor to put out more content and to have more on their platform, because a lot of us, we go to Anchor first as the podcast host, and it's free, and Anchor's owned by Spotify, so you get a chance to use music and then just sends it to Spotify. So yeah, and the Spotify, that I think it's really is helpful, especially when you're doing a lot of driving, like you said. I mean, that's a lot of back and forth, that you can at least find stuff to, you know, listen to that's positive out there. And plus, you guys put out content, you know what I mean? For anybody, if you're listening or watching right now, I'll have the link in there for Christa. You know, they do live all the time, right? Where you guys go live on Facebook and do Just for Today together.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to like play around with the Facebook Live, Instagram Live, and then I just record it, and so I can put it on YouTube, and then it's like on the podcast. So
Okay,
yeah,
cool. Yeah.
living sober, you know.
Yep, Chris, I'll have all the links, whether you're listening or watching, and, you know, whether it's to Facebook or to YouTube or to Instagram or TikTok, you're all over. And
Yeah.
Steve, you're on there all the time with her doing stuff. So, you know, it's.
But I'm a co-host when I'm not busy.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know, coming from another sober couple, like we make content all the time, and it's, it's fun to participate in your recovery with your partner and to do stuff that's positive, that's for the recovery community, but you don't necessarily like go sit in a meeting together and, sit there. And I don't think you even should go to meetings together when you're a couple, to be honest with you. I think that's better for the couple to split up and go separately, even for yourselves and for the other people in the room. But that's why doing this is fun for, doing something together in recovery.
Yeah. I used to go to my men's meeting every Tuesday. Like we'd go to meetings together here and there.
Yeah.
But mostly
you have some that are like the social meetings where you go as a couple and, but then I feel like, having a men's meeting or a women's meeting or something like that, they are definitely important. Not to go and like talk shit on the other person, but I think also for the other people in the room, like to feel comfortable, like talking, like I feel like I can talk more open when I know there's not a couple in the room, about certain things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I truly kind of like, I really got into the men's meeting because that facade is gone, like where some of the young other guys, like everybody's trying to like puff their chest out or like, trying to impress somebody, like
fashion show meetings.
Everybody's eyeballing the hot girl in the corner or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like there's none of that. So now we all take our mask off and we're all being real,
strictly business.
Yeah, we're being men. I've seen some guys really open up and be vulnerable there, and some amazing things have happened in that room.
That's awesome, man. And I'm so glad you guys are, doing what you're doing and participating in your recovery the way you're doing it. I always like seeing you post, like, because I see Christa post for you guys, and you guys are always ready to go again. So that's so cool. Is there anything that you want to tell the couple in rehab? This will be the last thing, because like, you're the tale of like where you're the tale of like, hey, you shouldn't do rehab love, but now you're engaged and it's been 3 years, you're still together, you got a kid in the way. But is there a cautionary thing you want to give to the rehab love?
It's not for everybody. I don't know. We're an exception.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait.
I'm kind of on the same wave. Like, it's not the likeliness of this happening. What we went through is literally 1 in a million.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree.
It does not happen.
It shouldn't happen, but
I think it happened better because Steve waited.
Yeah. But we took the approach too. But I mean, I think either way, when you're in recovery, you should wait like they tell you to. I
mean, you're almost a year before you moved in together, and that's,
Yeah.
So that's good though. Yeah. I think that I'm glad that you acknowledge that you are like the exception when it comes to this doesn't usually work out this way.
Even tell us that, like the people who worked at Salvation Army who like, are still rooting for us today, like, even though we weren't supposed to be together, they're like, you're an exception, like, and they know that we're doing good and that we help each other out. We work our program and, stick to the.
That's all that really matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me to have, anything else on top of like, my 1 in a million thing is that, be patient. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If it's not, don't force it. Don't go the extra mile, because if you're forcing it, it ain't meant to be. And that's when you gotta let them fly, man. But like,
especially early in recovery, we're so emotional. Like, as people in general, we're fragile. People like that dude that used that Chris or whatever, like was vulnerable, and
That was probably the last relationship I had to go through to realize that I needed something genuine, something real, something. And I waited a little bit after that, and then I met Steve, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna pray about this because I know it's wrong. I just went through something. Like, what am I doing again? But
Yeah. No, I think you definitely did it right. I think the waiting, the patience, and the not forcing it. Like, if she's saying no, not yet, I need more time, then that means no, not yet. She needs more time. Mm-hmm. So, I'm glad you both were ready when you were ready, and I'm sure that little girl's gonna be really happy that you were ready when you were ready in a couple months. So congrats again, guys. That's
Sober
awesome.
parents, which is awesome. So
What is it?
sober parents.
Yeah,
You know?
and it comes into the world with sober parents. That's awesome. I'm so happy for you guys. Thank you again for taking the time, Steve. Especially, I know you're a busy dude, and Krista, I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
On on the many things, but thank you guys again so much.
Hey, you're welcome, JD.
Bye.
Have a
Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.